There are three kinds of discipline: letters of warning, emergency placement in a non-duty status, letters of warning in lieu of time off suspension. Appeals for all of these must be filed in 10 calendar days. See, I've got 10 in red. It's in red because I want you to remember this. You have 10 calendar days to file. If you file beyond that, the grievance is untimely. It can be dismissed because it is untimely. And you don't ever want a grievance dismissed because it's untimely. Management won't even consider the merits of it. When I do have something that is older than, or about to be older than that before I can file, sometimes they come to you on day 10, day 9. When those things happen, I generally ask for an extension. I ask in writing. I may call them up and talk to them. Some people say, Nancy, you just write too fast, too much. Hey, I document. But because I write doesn't mean that I don't talk to them. It just means that I document, that I ask, and I ask them to respond to me the same way. You can send me an email that says, okay, whatever, but you must file within 10 calendar days. If you don't, the grievance can be dismissed because it is untimely. I know I've said that twice, but I want that etched in your mind. Letters of warning and emergency placement in non-duty status. Again, appeal in writing. I got verbal as a question mark. Yeah, you can talk to them verbally, but I don't want you just talking and trying to negotiate and out-talk somebody and debating and going through all this and going time limit. So yes, you talk to them, the issuing supervisor or the manager, and you do it within 10 days of receipt of the action. But I still write it. I just think it's necessary. And generally when I'm talking to them, I've been around a long time so they know me. I usually say, you know I'm going to put this in writing. They say, yeah. And that's just so that we can document it with file time. I have to do this for my members. My members want me to do it. May not be true, but that's what that tells. Now you can discuss with the issuing supervisor or the manager during the appeal period. Written notice by the issuing manager supervisor should be received within 5 calendar days after the receipt of the appeal. We have a lot of problems with managers responding on that. When they don't respond to me within 5 calendar days, I send them a nice little letter. I know you're busy. I know we all got hectic schedules. Just wanted to remind you that I submitted a grievance to you on whatever date I would like a response. May I have a response? At the beginning, I'm really nice and friendly and cordial. But the bottom line is, if you don't respond to me, I'm going to push it up without a response. People say, can you do that? Yes, you can do that. I push it up. I send to the next official the copy of the grievance that I initiated. I send a copy of the email or the letter that I sent asking this person to respond. And then I just go on to explain that my member has a letter of warning and something that they filed that needs to be removed. However I want to explain it, I need a decision. And I'm just asking you to operate within the guidelines of the rules. I mean, that's what I have to do. Our members don't have a choice. I can't say, oh, I was busy, you know, I was on vacation, whatever. I decided to respond on day 12. So then why then can you have 7, 10, 15 days to respond to me? You know, I expect you to respond. I don't have a lot of trouble, but I do have trouble sometimes. Most of the time, they'll go on and respond, or they'll give me something I can live with. Remember, I'm not hard-nosed, I'm not trying to make enemies, but I'm just trying to make you respect the process. Like I tell them, all I got is 650 process. That's all I got. I got to use it. I will not allow you to abuse it. You know, it's just a matter of business, you know, so do it that way. But you got to keep up with it. Extenuating circumstance may delay a response. And they can explain it. I think the regulation even reads that way. You know, they can write me back and say I was, whatever, I was inspection, on vacation. May I? Now, if they want some extra days, I give it to them. Because remember, I asked for extra days too. I just don't want to be ignored. I just don't want to be ignored. I don't want NAPS ignored. I don't want the process ignored. We got to work with what we got, and I'm not going to let you disrespect the process. So these time limits are important. If they make us adhere to them, they should adhere to them too. PDS. At one time, NAPS was saying you don't have to participate in the PDI. The 650 process does not include the PDI. Pre-disciplinary interviews were designed for craft employees. We don't have to go in there. We had that argument, kind of beat it to death. But what I found out, it was easy for me to argue that. But it really wasn't easy for me to enforce that. And sometimes people at NAPS headquarters, postal headquarters, they do push things down the field that we can't implement. And that was when I found out I didn't have a lot of luck. Sometimes I did have some success and not participating. But in Chicago, they even changed the language. They don't call it PDI. They call it investigative interviews or something. And I guess they probably start to do that all over so that you can't say, well, this is not a part of the process. You know, it's an investigation. Bottom line is you usually have to go in. If you don't, they get you for failure to follow instructions. So you have to go in. So then that means that you try to talk to them in advance about what the issue is and how they should respond, and what documents, if any, they could bring in to show their efforts to resolve whatever it was. The problem I'm finding is that a lot of people are not sure what they're going in for. Exactly. They don't tell you why. They just come back and say, I want to see you in a few minutes, and you have to come in the office. So PDIs are hard, and I'm trying to think how to teach this. Sometimes you develop a style of your own that you can't really teach, but generally we tell the people to give short responses. Don't say anything that you don't want to read about later. Because it's going to be in the letter. You know, did you know this? Did you know that? Yes. Well, did you know this? Yes. Yes. They ask you all these rules and regulations to which you always respond. Yeah, I knew that. And so then when you get to letter one, it says, you knew this, you knew that, and yet, despite the fact that you knew this, you did such and such. So this is really a hard one, honestly, even for me. And I've done a lot of them, but we try to tell people, keep your answers short. Now, sometimes people have really good reasons. And in those cases, it's good to just go ahead and give the information. I've had some managers that really could document the things that they did, say, for a mystery shop. And I don't know, despite whatever they say about discipline and mystery shop, most of us know that they will still call you in there and you will still have some kind of problems. But I did have somebody who could document, you know, how many people were in the window, what she was doing, da-da-da-da-da-da, and she brought those things in, and there was no discipline issue. So yes, I've had a number of PDIs where it didn't result in discipline. But you have to be really careful how you respond. Now, you should tell your members not to go in without a rep. They should bring somebody with them. And while you're in there, you try to be professional. I always write down the questions if they don't give me a copy. I write down what my members said. And sometimes I say, hey, you got to slow down. I had one lady that just really aggravated. She said, I just can't think. I have to write it down. And then I have to look at it, and then I'll answer. She drove me crazy. You know, but they had to let us do it, you know. And then sometimes, of course, you can't think of the right answer. So you just say, I'm sorry, I can't recall. And they explain, you say, I don't remember. And they keep going, you still say, I just don't remember, I can't recall. I've had people run out and cry, like, I didn't know how to answer that. Yes? Yes.
I think one of the things that we tend to catch a lot when we go in with these PDIs is we have to warn our members that oftentimes the question, the narrative prior to the question is formulated to basically make you admit that you are guilty on it. So you have to stop them and say, hold it. First off, I don't agree that all of that you just said is true. So your question, the basis of your question is not true. Right. So we have to be careful of how they phrase the question. Also, we have to be careful how they phrase the question.
Right.
and warn our members that no, we're not going to answer it quite like that. And we have to say what we want to say and not admit what they want us to admit.
And that's why you need to talk to them before you go in so that you can share those kinds of thoughts with them before they go in there. I have been able to get the questions. People say they won't give you the questions, say you have to ask each time. I tell them no. If you give me the questions, we will respond. But we need some time to look at what you got. I saw a hand over there. But there are a number of things that you can tell them that will change the shape and the outcome of the PDI. Yes?
Do you advise your members that there can be called in for possible discipline to ask for an ask representative? Or
Yes.
Do they not have to? Or, I advise mine to ask for a representative. They got a call from a postmaster the other day saying, do I have to offer them a representative?
They entitled to a representative of their choice.
Right. The supervisor, but the postmaster's question was, do I have to ask if they want a representative?
No.
No. So your members have to know to ask, and they are entitled to the representative of their choice. Some places try to assign them a rep. Over here, I think, I'll come back to you, Stephanie.
Go on experience and branch 925. Do you get a copy of the questions prior to the meeting? No. Copy of the questions after?
Most of the time, you don't get a copy of the questions at all, but I have actually been able to get some in advance. Some people really don't care, but most of them don't want to give you questions. But at least if they give you questions, you can be prepared on how you're going to answer. But I ask them all the time. And they don't have any questions. Stephanie?
I guess I kind of disagree with that because
What?
I think if you know from the interview that it's going to lead to discipline, you have to ask. If you know it's going to lead to discipline, because if you don't, then you didn't give them due process. If you know when I interview you, it's going to lead, then you have to ask.
Then you said the manager needs to ask.
Then the manager will have to say, you need to bring your rep.
Right.
If I know when I interview, and you know I do, if I know I'm going to take disciplinary action based on this interview, then I have to offer you that.
Stephanie, I agree with your reason. I just like don't know if it's written anywhere that they must do that. It is where?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's written.
Tell me where, and we can tell everybody.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
It's written.
Okay, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you go over with Weingarten. But however, even in Weingarten, like it says that during that process, if you, the person being questioned, you ask,
Right.
is it going to lead to disciplinary action? At that point, when they say yes, it can, at that point, you can invoke your right and say, hey, you know what, I need a representative.
Right.
That's usually how it works, because I know that's what's written down. But if there is some additional information, like Stephanie says she has, then that's fine. But I know that on Weingarten, that's how it's written. That if once you find out, if you're the person being questioned, once you find out, and you ask, and as soon as they say yes, then you say, hey, you know what, stop right now, I don't want to participate until I get a representative.
Generally, in my experience, when they begin the interview, though, they do tell you that this could lead to disciplinary action. I have a hand here.
Hi, Ed Newman, State President of Nebraska, local branch 10. We just had an incident the other day where the OIG walked into one of our supervisors. Supervisor said, I don't care, I've done nothing wrong, sign the paper. Once you've done that, you're dead. The thing is that as soon as somebody walks in and starts questioning you, it's up to you as a person to say, is this going to lead to disciplinary action? If it does, I'm not answering your questions, I want to rest.
I believe that is what we should tell our members. That they must ask.
It's the same for an OIG Patty Murphy branch 16. So the OIG walks in and says to his supervisor, they want to ask him some questions. At that point, can he stop it and say, I want one of our reps before you start asking me any questions?
Yes, it is.
Okay, same with postal inspector, the same with anybody. They can actually stop it and say, I'm not going to talk to you until I have a rep here. Okay.
Yeah, and in my experience, the OIG have always waited for the rep to come. I don't know what happens everywhere else. Yes?
Lori Wesley, branch 16. Just going to say, I work on a lot of grievances, and in dealing with the OIG, you have to be specific and say, I want a rep. If you say, do I need a rep? They will not. They'll just say, I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So make sure that your people know to be very direct.
So then it seems clear that the message to our members needs to be, if you're called in to be interviewed by the OIG or PDI, something that will lead to discipline, you need to ask for representation. Yes, in the back.
Jeffrey Floyd, Branchburg, 15, Well, I know in the Mid-America District, it's getting to the point now where a lot of managers and postmasters, if they get called down, they can have a member of labor in there, and they will always call a member of NAC to come down and represent them, or the league, or whoever his name is, whoever's involved. But they have gone to the extent where they will have a member of labor sitting in on that PDI with the MP or the postmaster, whoever's given it to that postmaster or manager.
I see that a lot, especially in adverse action. They will have labor on there. Actually, I've done some in Chicago where they had somebody from the legal staff in there. Because the lawyers are there, they're assigned. They're in Chicago, so they'll bring them in too. But generally, if a labor person is there or the lawyer is there, then usually it's not a problem getting a NAP's rep in there. They acknowledge that you're entitled to representation of your choice. Sometimes they try to pick a rep, and we've had problems with that, where people prefer one over another, and so they have to argue about the right to have the one that they choose. I saw a hand over here. Yes, Neil.
Neil Baker, Northside Lawyer, that's exactly what the gentleman in front of me, that's exactly the relationships that Nancy's talked about in the previous interview. You can develop that where they have somebody there and you call ahead and ask for the NAP's rep to be there. That works in some places, some don't. But get back to the IG. They will not ask you if you want a rep, and they'll beat around the bush. But you absolutely have the right to have somebody there. In the Twin Cities, it's happened where they've had to sit and wait for 2 hours until somebody had time to get a hold of somebody and get there. There was another case where they absolutely said, it took us 3 hours to get here, we can't wait, we need to proceed with this. They talked the person into going ahead. Those two IGs, I don't know, they didn't get disciplined, but they got reprimanded from their headquarters in DC because they were told if they had to make a trip back and set a reasonable amount of time, that's what they should have done. So make sure they don't trick you into saying, well, we can't wait, we can't come back, we either talk now or it's done.
And make sure you communicate that to your members, that they do have a right to representation of their choice. Again, keep the responses short and factual. And if you don't recall, you don't recall. Don't speculate, don't elaborate. Because it's gonna be in that notice when you get the written notice. So don't speculate, don't lie. If you don't recall, just state you don't recall. And let's move forward. Now, Representative, this is appealing disciplinary action. So after submitting the grievance, and usually you, this is what, that was a warning roll. Usually you get a response in 5 days, within 7 calendar days after the step 8 decision. You can file for appeal and include the employee information on the basis for appeal. Now, when I write appeals, and of course, letter of warning is no go as far as adverse action, but I still write it as though it's going to end in front of somebody who knows absolutely nothing about the employee, nothing about the case. I write it as though it's going to appear before administrative law judge. So those interviews that you take initially are very important. What happened, how did it happen, why it happened, what regulation, what policy, what rule is applicable. You take a look at those yourself and see if stating the policy actually helps the person out Or, yeah, does it hinder, does it cause them more problems? But you need to put as much in there as you can so that the deciding official knows what's happening, how it happens, and hopefully comes to the kind of decision that you're looking for. Some people really don't like to write, but I'm telling you, if you're going to be a rep, you need to be a person who does a lot of writing, and you need to work on your writing skills more and more and more these days. It's not the good old boy handshake and smile to get something done. You got to send it people up. And so you need to learn how to state exactly what happened, how it happened, why it happened. And sometimes the member has done exactly what they're being disciplined for, you know that. So in those cases, you need to try to find some kind of mitigating or extenuating circumstance that needs to be taken into consideration. Sometimes you have to be creative. The step B official discusses the appeal with the employee or the representation. Now, even though I send things up in writing, I usually ask for an opportunity to meet with the deciding official to provide some additional information. Sometimes the face-to-face brings better results than the written. I just like to do both because I may have to document something. The official renders a written decision within 10 calendar days after receipt of the appeal. Now, usually this is final. But the employee can ask for a request within 15 days of the Step B decision. And again, it must be timely. The matter that I was talking to Rochelle about was an area decision. But I submitted on time and I hadn't gotten a response. And so, you know, tactfully and nicely, I sent her a copy of the appeal and asked, where was my decision? So the appeal goes to the manager HR, the Great Lakes, well, the area manager HR, and we give specific reasons. So I sent a copy of the Step A, a copy of the Step B, any documents that accompany those written grievances go also. But then I do a cover page that explains, I'm appealing to you because this wasn't considered, that wasn't considered, whatever makes me think that it wasn't given full attention is included in my letter as I send it up and ask for a review. So then that manager at the area has to understand the case and understand why you feel that the decision was unfair and why you're looking for a review. Yes,
Michael Winter, branch 255. Okay, again, this is kind of like the other. If you don't get a Step B decision, do you send a letter requesting it again? And if you don't get a response to that, how long? I mean,
if I don't get a response, if I don't get a response, first I contact the person that should have given me the decision, and that's kind of nice, you know, when you give me a decision. And then there are some times that don't, he won't, well, she won't, it doesn't happen. Right, I will send it up, and I send it up with an explanation that this is coming to you minus a Step B decision because the manager didn't render one, and as the documents will show, I filed on such and such a date. I did a follow-up on another date. I sent an email. Despite these efforts to resolve it at the lowest possible level, the manager remains unresponsive, and so I send it to you for your review and a decision. Yes, is that true?
Nancy Ken Bunch, branch 23, question. Now, are you speaking of just a letter of warning or all disciplinary action? When you talk about following up to make sure you get a decision?
I might not be talking about a removal. Before I was up concerned, they can wait the hell freezes over to give me a decision on removal. But other than that, yeah, I do it on all of them because I don't want all these grievances. I have a lot of grievances. I don't want to pile them up. I don't want somebody now to get subsequent discipline and based on the fact that they already have whatever, they go to the next progressive move.
Let me respond why I posed the question.
Okay.
When they issue us, EAS, a letter of warning, notice of 7-day or 14-day or removal, it's a proposal. It's a proposed adverse action. I don't force them to respond to it. Once I respond, give them our position. Our position is on the record. If we never get a decision on it, then it's not discipline from our vantage point. It's just a proposed discipline. I don't go back to them a month later and say I want a decision on that proposal. If they never give it to me, I don't have any discipline. I don't have a 7-day suspension. I don't have a 14 day. I don't have a removal. All I have is a proposed adverse action. That's all I have.
Well, that's one way to look at it. I've had people, though, who got subsequent discipline based on having already received the proposal, and you're right. Without a decision, the action is not finalized, but in my experience, I find, not, like I said, if it's a removal, then no, you cannot ever answer it, I don't care. That means they're still on the road. But in these other instances, I usually want, and then I find that the people want a decision. I've got a guy right now who wants this letter out of his folder. And as far as he's concerned, until I see something that says it's removed. But your point is well taken for those who would rather do it that way. I usually ask for a decision. Yes.
Tony Coleman Scruggs, Gary Branch 171. And I was agree with Ken. If I don't get a response, like for example, I have 2 people who've gotten removals back in April. I did my appeals. I haven't got a response, and even though the person was told he got a decision, he's removed, I said, you still on the rolls. They haven't taken you off. You go and work. And
Wait, you said he's removed.
Well, that's what the post, because he filed an EEO, and the manager.
He's in a non-pay status?
No, he's working. They never said
he's not removed.
Right, but that's what they stated. But I'm like, I'm not going to push the issue. I did my appeals back in April. I never got a response, so it's just a proposal. And I'm like, I told the person, don't worry until they make a decision. And since April, if I haven't gotten any response on this proposal.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about adverse action.
No.
I have people who stay on administrative leave 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. We had somebody in South stay on administrative leave for over a year. No, I'm not forcing a decision. I'm talking about this other action. Right. Those people that I talked about earlier that was, every supervisor's place was marched out, given emergency suspension, and then final notice of removals, they stayed out for months. They were nervous wrecks. Understand, they were being paid every day, and most people who are on administrative leave are not having a good time because they wake up every day thinking they're going to be fired, but they were being paid. But it's those others. I'm not arguing with his position over there. I mean, that's maybe the way you want to take it. If it's a proposal, it's not an action. But most people I represent want a decision. Charles.
Charles A. Grant, 14, Chicago. Look, I just think what Ken brought up is about that proposal. I think it's an important point. I think we need some clarification from the officers about actually, is this really discipline or not? Or should we really go after it? Because it's still proposal.
Yes, it
So I
does.
always have been in kind of like, what do I do with this? Because it doesn't really say exactly. And I think we need some clarity on that issue, whether or not we should take that forward or not. Or we should be aggressively seeking to get that overturned. I mean, I don't think we should leave it on the table like that, that we should or we should not. I think we need a real clear answer on that.
It's either issued or not.
Is that right?
Stephanie Hartman, grant 14, you can't even cite it. In our district, all our EAS action goes to the law department. You cannot even cite it without a decision letter. They will not even cite it without a decision letter to move forward in the action.
Those are good points. I had one person who was trying to bid on jobs, and she had 2 proposals of removal. Had gotten one and hadn't got a decision on it, and they got another one. And she really wanted us to do something about those proposals because she said she knew that one manager at the office where she was trying to go had called and asked about her disciplinary record, and that even though they were proposals and not decisions, and that officer was made aware that she had 2 proposals. And so she felt like she wanted us to go forward and to get rid of those proposals, even though they were not decisions. Jay, would you like to join us in this discussion? I just like picking on Jay. Well, we have a discussion here on whether we should just pursue a decision when somebody has got a proposal, because a proposal is actually not a decision, it's not an action, and as Stephanie just said, you can't even cite it if you want to give subsequent discipline. So, should we just leave it hanging if they don't want to respond?
I'll give you my personal opinion.
Okay, that gave it back to you.
When I was in the field representing people, I would let it hang.
Let it hang?
Now here's why. Let's say it's something as simple as a letter of warning for something they did wrong. If you start pestering the decision official, all they're going to do is deny the appeal, and it's going to be issued. Right? And now you're going to go through the process. Let's say they get a letter of warning for failing to make a dispatch. Now a lot of times those are 14 days, those just aren't letters of warning. So now 3 months goes by. They didn't give you an answer. In that ensuing 3 months, not one dispatch was missed. So now once you get to a point that the performance has changed, you can go back to the person and say, you know what? You gave a letter of warning to that individual for missing a dispatch. How's things been in the past 90 days? Have you missed any dispatches? And they're going to say, no, things have been good. Well, maybe that letter of warning had served its purpose and we don't need it anymore. What do you think? Now, you've already got, they got the message to pay attention to dispatches, right? And they go, right. Haven't had any problems, right? How do you want to reward the fact that they changed their behavior? Good way is to get rid of it. Well, what if they do it again? Well, if they do it again, you can discipline them again. 9 times out of 10 it works. But if you say, you know, you've got 5 days to answer me, they'll give you that answer in 5 days. And it's not going to be what you want. So sometimes time heals all wounds. Sometimes. So, you know, it's a case-by-case basis. I've had people who have been on administrative leave being paid for 8 months. And what I usually tell those people, enjoy the vacation. Because how serious can it be? And they haven't even issued them anything. How serious could it be if they've taken no action? Because, you know, the person that wrote the charges left, or they lost the file, and you don't know they lost the file. I was talking with somebody from this region today. Exactly the same thing's happening. But a lot of times those people get pretty itchy. The key thing to tell people, you should only be talking to me and your family. Because, you know, you give a letter of warning to an employee, what do? They walk around, hold up, look, I got a letter of warning. That's the best advertising you can have as a supervisor, is one of your employees running around crying, you know, I was coming in late and they disciplined me. Oh, so maybe I better not come in late. Tell them to keep their mouth shut. You don't win your case in the court of public opinion. That's where everybody goes with their problems. The last person they tell is naps. Everybody else knows about it. So my personal opinion is, if that thing's dragging out, just let it drag out. If they're always getting in trouble, they're going to get them anyway. Now, you may have other opinions, but you ask me for mine. That's what I've done over the years. And most times it works. And then in the meantime, you're counseling that person saying, you better pay attention. Because what they'll do, you know, you can have a letter of warning pending. That doesn't keep them from giving you another one, a 14 on top of it. And then they're going to get you the denial letter and give you the next piece of discipline right on top. So, there you go.
All right, so that's 2 trains. Kevin? Carol?
Okay, but I think, Jay, but what about the proposal part? That was the main concern.
Well, the thing is, you answer it. You know, we're always held to our timelines.
Okay.
There are no provisions or penalties for the Postal Service not to be held to their timeline.
Okay.
And how many of you have ever gotten an answer in the timeline? More often than not, you don't. That's okay. Because if it's not adverse action, we don't have a lot of recourse. And if we hold them to their timelines, all it's going to be rubber stamp. Denied, 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 denied. So write it up.
Is that the rule? That Tom?
This is Ruben, Nancy, how you doing?
Ruben.
Branch here in Indianapolis. A proposal is nothing more than saying, this is what I'm proposing to do to you. It's like you propose to marry someone, you're not married. That's what I'm proposing to do to you. Now, we have to answer that proposal, yes. But I don't look for me, I don't look for them. I don't want them to, I want them to take as long as they can. Because time between us and your ally. Then there's other things that egregious. If this is so egregious, why do you take 10 months to make a decision? So that becomes the ally. That's the way I look at it. And that has worked for me.
All right. I'll entertain one more. I think we need to move on. Yeah, Tony?
Tony, Gary Branch, 171. And I did run mine up to Charlie, and he told me, don't, like you said, don't do anything if the post office is not going to respond. I mean, I did my appeal, and until we get something saying you actually removed, don't worry about it. And that was his response to me on that one. And then, and for another one, I did have one where the Postal Service did not respond back to me on that discipline, and they cited it. I didn't get a response, and they cited it, and they actually had to take that back so the person got to remove it, and they had to reduce it and change it because on one of them they never gave me a response back on appeal, and I notated that, so it backfired on them.
We're gonna have to move on, but I think that we've had enough discussion, at least I hope so, to give you some guidance. When it comes to removals, I think we all said the same thing, that we don't care if they never give us a decision. I have had some people that, like the one that I was talking to Michelle about, this guy just keeps badgering them because he really believes that the evidence that we presented was enough for a rational, objective person to remove the discipline, and so he wants to respond. But we've had a lot of discussion here, and I think I need to move on. Okay, the letter 1 remains in the official personnel folder for 2 years after you get this response. That's step to review. Letters 1 in lieu of time off suspensions are issued in 2 stages. There's the proposed letter, which may be for 7 to 14 days. The material used to determine the action can be reviewed by employees or representatives. I always ask for all the material relied on to issue the discipline. And then sometimes I even ask for some additional information that might not have been considered when the discipline was written. Kevin?
I don't mean to keep this slowing it down, but one other point that we just had to come up with on one page. Nancy says, ask for all discipline. Again, you may have to ask for that same information again down the road after another decision, because we almost got to catch-22 in the case with Glenn Smith, our NAPS attorney, because the branch president asked for it initially, and it was different than what they charged with. So then after it's issued, you may have to go back and re-ask for all the other information after the discipline's issued. There's new court rulings out on that. So up in the beginning, do it, and then after the decision letter, and you've read it, and you see something different, ask for it again. Because they changed some of the rules, Glenn said, and we almost had a problem with that in a case recently. So you may have to ask for it twice.
And in one of my cases, I asked for all of the information that management had relied on to issue the discipline, and I got that. But then the supervisor said, no, that's not what you need to look at. You need to look at such and such a thing. This was somebody, I think Oakville Center, and I don't know what machines give you what kind of information, but he knew. And he was saying, what they're showing you is not what they need to be looking at. And so I brought that in to say that you need to talk to the supervisor too and say, well, does this tell the whole story? And if not, then what else should I be looking at to support your side of the argument? Because remember, you represent a lot of people who are in functional areas that you don't have a lot of knowledge about. And so there may be something else that you need to look at. But you get as much information as you can to tell the story and to support what the supervisor is saying. And of course, after you get all of these materials, hopefully you can analyze them. And so in your response then, your analysis of the information will be included.
Yeah, Lenita Fitz, Chicago Branch 14. I just wanted to touch upon what you just mentioned about not being familiar with that subject area of the person you're representing. Also with OIG, I work for the OIG, and they're basically, I'm auditor, but most of the time what you're referring to is when an investigator will actually come in to deal with a particular employee about an issue or a particular instance. They also don't know. Half of the OIG investigators are not even from Postal. Half of them are from other government agencies. They've gotten transferred in. Only some of them come over from the inspection service. So they don't always know all of the right answers either. So as you were saying, a lot of times if a person is brought in on discipline, I'm not talking about theft or fraud, but it could be a situation of mismanagement. They're saying you're not doing your job properly. They might have just some basic information, but if you, as their representative and employee themselves, do the research and maybe you'll find something that will counteract whatever it is they're trying to charge you with, that'll be in your favor too, because they don't know all the answers. Now they might walk in there and seem like they, they get all their eggs in order, but they don't necessarily have to. So just make sure that the employee does his research, whatever he's being charged with, make sure he's done all the research to find out if there's any additional information that can support his side, so that if it's an ambiguous situation, that will help work in the employee's favor.
The time periods are in red, 10 calendar days, and as we've said a number of times now, we are held to those time limits. And so you have to make your appeals within the time that's up there. But it's really important when you first get the grievance to start to get the information that was relied on, because sometimes things sort of disappear. And the decision of letter of warning and in lieu of time off suspensions in the field installations may be appealed, again with 15 calendar days, to the area manager of human resources. And we've discussed whether or not you want to send it up or just let it die. The review is based solely on the record, and there's no opportunity to meet with the official. And this is when it's important to include all the information. If you have decided that you're going to do an area appeal, keep in mind that this deciding official will not meet with you. You'll have no opportunity for some face time to include some things that you forgot to write. And so everything must be in the case file. All the documents, all the narratives, everything that needs to be said and shown to bring that official to decision must be in that file. And the decision is rendered in 60 days, and this is also a time limit that the Postal Service doesn't seem to keep. And it remains then in your folder for 2 years. Now, grievances is an employee-initiated appeal related to working conditions, and so sometimes these grievances are filed, and there has been no disciplinary action. And you just kind of follow those same procedures, which you can review on section 8, page 7. Six, sorry. I'm trying to rush now because we're running out of time. 4 types of adverse action: removal, suspensions of more than 14 days, reductions in pay or grade, furlough. When you think about adverse action, you think about something that has caused somebody to lose money. And the procedures are similar. There's usually a notice of proposed adverse action, there's a response, there is then finally a letter of decision. And the employee remains in the pay status or on the job or in administrative leave during the 30-day notice. Mediation. Now, I've had some cases where the Postal Service will include in the disciplinary action that the action has been so egregious that the person doesn't have mediation right. But unless that language is in there, then they can request mediation. another attempt at resolving at the lowest level. We don't always ask for, no, I don't want to go there, let me go back. We don't always ask for mediation, but we do most of the time in adverse action because it gives us a little more time to study the case, to get documents, to talk to the supervisor. For most adverse action cases, we do ask for mediation. Lost my train of thought. We ask for mediation, oh, I know what to tell you. In some of the districts, I know in Central Illinois District, it's going to take you 3 weeks to get a mediation. And what I'm discovering is that so many people are requesting mediation now. In other districts too, that it takes 2, 3 weeks. Some people will take a month. So that means you get some extra time in there. If the person is being removed, they get a little more time on the clock. And if it's not a removal, at least it provides you with opportunity to investigate and be able to make the kind of response that you want to make. So we ask for mediation quite a bit. We ask for mediation sometimes if we think time will cool down the tempers or the relationship, or we think that maybe the issuing supervisor, issuing manager will feel differently in 3 or 4 weeks. We may ask for it then. I'm so backlogged. I have so many grievances today. I just want everybody to file, just to give me a chance to complete the grievances I have before me. And sometimes, those are the reasons. I don't know if those are the right reasons. Basically, mediation is an opportunity to resolve at the lowest level. But if I ask for mediation, during those weeks, I try to ask all the questions: who, what, why, how could you have done it differently? Did you know the policy, and how come you didn't apply it? I mean, I try to get a really good case so that I can present it at the mediation and offer the mediator an opportunity to really work with us and for us, and give the manager more to consider. I also ask all those questions because I'm going to write a summary for my own reference. But if I have to go to step B, I can do it the same day because it's written. All I do is copy, paste it in step B and move forward. When I leave a mediation, if there's no agreement and we have to go forward, or the person wants to go forward, everything I need is there. All the documents are there. All the questions have been answered. And so the way I prepare it generally allows me to be able to follow step B the same day and move forward. So when mediation is requested, then that action is just held in abeyance. If you don't settle it at the mediation, then you go back to the time frame and you have 10 days, I believe, just to file to the official that's going to make a decision. So it holds everything in abeyance. Did you hear me? Yeah. Generally, we don't do administrative hearing at all. Administrative hearing is 650 hearing that's conducted by the Postal Service, and the hearing officer is there, the Postal Service employee. I've actually never had one, but what I've been told is that they usually mirror the decision of the post office, and it happens with such frequency that we usually go to MSPB if the person has MSPB rights rather than a hearing. Under Elm 650, the hearing is conducted by the Postal Service. Like I said, we don't do that. We usually file for MSPB, and people do it different ways. Some representatives get the MSPB form and they let the person fill it out completely, and they send it to Seattle. That's not the way I do it. Well, I guess we don't have time for anybody else. I usually complete the form and get it to Charlie Seattle like immediately. Sometimes I fax it to him so that he has enough information to file, and then the complete file that might come with a tabbed file, showing everything behind the tabs and explaining that I expressed mail to him. But he has to get it in a timely fashion so he can file. So I give him the basic information, which is controlled on, which is on the form. Can we do that for next week?
Sure. Well, like, we get on that class.
Yeah, right. When a person gets notice of debt determination, I'll just say this real fast, then you do ask for all the materials relied on to issue this letter of debt determination, and you ask for reconsideration. So there's some argument that is in the letter that you send them. You ask for reconsideration because document so-and-so reveals this and document so-and-so reveals that. You try to give the decision-making official enough reason to reconsider. And then if you get a letter that says, "Fooey on you, we still want our money," then you wait till the person gets a notice of involuntary offset. And once they get the notice of involuntary offset, you contact Charlie C. Allen, giving him all the information, documents, etc. Charlie files the hearing, and generally he handles those himself. Somewhere on it, I have Charlie's address. No, I don't. Go to naps.org. Yeah, I just have it. Go to naps.org and you can get Charlie's address. It's still in the address where you send. This was too fast.
It can go on for 2 hours too. Ruben, one question I had, one thing I want to add at the end here. Go ahead.
We talked about the local inspectors and the OIG.
Yes.
You go in before them, just comment. You have to go before them. Please represent, they know something about the Gary one and the Cal King one. Those are very important because if you go before them, you could lead something that may be criminal. So please learn about the Gary and the Cal King one.
And that's segue in
To what you were saying.
folks, we just had something that just came up last week. I'm not going to be specific on the case, but I want you to be very familiar with what's going to happen. We need to say, like Ruben said, we need to make sure that if our member hasn't asked, that we ask the question, is this going to be criminal? And if this goes on, stop your discussion immediately with them. One of our NAPS officers has been subpoenaed by the OIG to now come in as a witness for their case. Your notes can be subpoenaed. If you are asked by the OIG, you're brought downtown and questioned by the prosecutor, you better say yes if you have notes, because you will be charged. You better turn them over if they're given. But that's why I want you to invoke this quickly so that there's nothing more than they may have said something and then you say that's it. Because now what they have done, and I talked to Glenn a little bit about this last week, there's nothing we can do about it, but he does think it's a little stinky that they're using now NAPS officers as decoys to make their case. He said they should already have their case. We have no attorney-client privilege. So we need to make sure. You could be into a case for 2 months and have a stack of notes this deep, and then they come back and file a criminal charge against them. Guess what? They know you've been with them. Don't lie that you don't have this stuff. Turn it over if you're subpoenaed to do so, and you're going to have to testify, and you better tell the truth. Now, is this any good for us right now? Well, it's not our fault we were put into this situation. And when does it come up? This is the first time it's ever come up since I've been a NAPS officer. But just be savvy about all of it. Yeah, Ken. Quick question, and I would like to get that. Here's my question for you. When it comes to a situation with an OIG or an open inspection area, do we have a right to tell our member or tell the OIG while we're sitting there? They want to ask their question. They want spontaneous answers because I guess they figure they can get you to say something or get it the way they want it. Do we have a right to instruct our members or the OIG? Yes, we intend to cooperate with you fully. Give me your question, and I will respond to them in writing. Give me your question. I will respond to them in writing. And you can ask them all, you can ask me all of your questions right here and now. Give it to me in writing. I'll respond back to you within 2 days.
I'm going to give you a scenario that actually happened. We had a case where they did admit, because I did it telephonically at first. I said, they got me on the phone, and there were 3 OIGs there, or 2 OIGs in the inspection service agent with our member on the other end with their postmaster. And the first thing I said, are you going to charge them administratively or criminally? And they said, possibly both. And I said, right then and there, you need to invoke your guarantee rights and seek an attorney because I am not one, and I will handle your administrative stuff. So I actually went into the room, and I'm getting to your point, Ken, with me sitting here and the attorney, and the attorney, which is now one of our NAPS attorneys, Glenn, sitting here, who we hired independently. I asked that question. I said, you've gone on and on and on and on and on, and you put this person out of the office for 4 months. They said the answer to your question is back on your computer, and you've locked them out of that office to give you the answers. If you're willing to give us the dates, we'll be glad to respond back to you. So they had to eventually do that, Ken, because there was no other way. But you only get savvy with this when you kind of get beat up by the school of hard knocks. But the point I want to take away from here right now, if you're approached by the OIG and Inspection Service, there is a criminal case going on, you did take notes, you do have information, do not obstruct that. Can you add anything more to that, Dave?
No. I have one thing. I had my one and only case where they did end up making criminal charges. We had found an MSPB, however, our lawyer could not move forward with the MSPB until a decision was made in the criminal court. Well, this case involved a small amount of money, and criminally they haven't done anything, so this person is still just sitting out there. The MSPB won't go forward. I said earlier I have a son who is a prosecuting attorney for the federal government. He said, Mom, we are not going to process that case, I'm telling you right now, because it's $38. but it's not funny because I said, Mark, you got to be wrong. Well, it's been, what, around 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years, and they have not processed that case.
So
We cannot, huh?
Where's the employee?
Off.
We pay?
No.
For $38.
Well, and we think that we could probably win it in MSPB, and I won't go through into the case, but MSPB won't hear it until the criminal case has been resolved. And the criminal case is just
In limbo.
So it's
Just to add, if somebody gets arrested for drugs, they get arrested for, or they get apprehended for stealing, that's going to be a criminal case. And they need an attorney. They need an attorney to be talking with the OIG. They need an attorney to be talking with local officials. And that's the advice you give them. Now, in my career, I've only had one criminal case, representing people since the mid-'80s. Doesn't happen that often. And you should know when you're walking in what it probably is. You see the stuff in the newspapers about all the fraud cases, things like that. Those are criminal cases, and you shouldn't be involved in them. Anyway, just say you need to get an attorney.
I wanted to add at that point, the person that went in was called in to represent them. They already had the person in custody in the post office, but they didn't know it. So they get there to the meeting, they're talking, and at some point in time, in the early beginning, he asked to stop and caucus with our member. And that's when he said, what's going on here? And he told them, and that's when he said, you need to invoke your rights and go back in and don't tell me anything more. I talked to him to make sure he told the branch president the same thing. I got on the phone with Glenn, and Glenn said, don't say another word about any of this to anybody. Get him to an attorney. Don't talk to him anymore. Well, here, this little snippet in time, why they think they need this for their case when their case is this big anyway. But the point of it is they're now using us as their decoy, so we got to be savvy, get on the phone, do this quickly, get advice to somebody, your area VP, somebody like that, but stop the conversation quickly. Because whatever you take notes on, whatever you hear, you are compelled. Now, if they need an attorney and they're in custody, then obviously we can't stop that. But if it's just a proposed action or think that they're not been someplace, you know, they're stealing time because they didn't report their daily schedule or whatever, that is not really an obstruction of the case, and they have enough time to let you get an attorney in a day or two to come back and talk to them again. But they're going to keep pushing. Remember that. The OIG is going to keep pushing. The inspection service is going to keep pushing our members to talk before we get there. If it's not criminal, then they can wait until we get there. If it's seriously criminal, then obviously they're going to take them into custody and we're done anyway. But we can also, you know, give them some time to get that done if it's just something like a time theft thing or something. They reported they weren't off on the clock and on the clock, to let them get an attorney. And the MSPB rules that, and at the end it's kind of sketchy because you got one case here and one case here, doesn't say that that's withholding the case or, you know, their right to have us comply with their order. But remember the facts. Do not lie yourself, because you may get charges that are worse than what they're facing of obstruction. And there's no way we can defend that. So I just wanted to leave you that horrible negative thought. But